Hello, and thank you for tuning into this Hump Day pod, this Wednesday pod of Born to Be a Star. A pod where you recognize your star power, a pod where you look in the mirror, a pod where you recognize that you can do anything you put your mind to, regardless of where you are in this world, whether you live in the United States of America, Canada, India, England, or Istanbul. You can really do anything you set your mind to, and we have to get in that mindset. The color of our skin is just that, the color of our skin. The texture of our hair is just that, the texture of our hair. That doesn't mean we're different. It means that we have things that make us appear different. That doesn't mean we're not just people trying to all figure it out. This idea that we can't love people because they're one thing and we're another, how's that work? Because I've never understood that. That's not how I was raised, and I hope that's not how you were raised. I think we need to take our lives and be champions with them and recognize we can do things. Nobody should be telling you what you can't do. And if anything is telling you what you can't do, you need to can't be involved with that messaging. That's what I'm saying. Look in the mirror, whether the mirror is in your bathroom, your phone, or in your car, and say it with me. Yes, I can. Fear, doubt, somebody telling you what you can't do, somebody being envious of you and jealous of you, that just comes with it. That's called life. People are always going to act that way. People are always going to be fearful and scared, but you can't be scared. That's not living. That's looking at living. That's like watching something on TV. Are you watching your life on TV, or are you actually living your life? You can't watch your life if you're not living it. Just saying. Anyways, let's get into my favorite part of this podcast. No media allowed, no media allowed, no media allowed, because they lie to us anyway. So I constantly talk about the fact that politicians lie, the media lies, and a bunch of other things lie too. But today I want to focus my conversation on how do you have these conversations with your family. Now, Skip hates politicians. He's on my side with this. There's one party, they don't have a color. They're called the elite. There's no separation of them. They want to be treated like royalty, like kings and queens of the land. That's how politicians work in the United States. I don't know how they work where you work, but that's how they work here. The police and all of these other different layers of authority are only created to protect them from everything else. On the media, all they do is lie. I told you about those videos where Biden was walking in circles and he couldn't figure out where the hell he was, and that was a week or two ago, right? Do you think that was on CNN, Clinton News? No, it wasn't on Clinton News. Was it on any other news station? No. Maybe they might show somewhat of a clip of that on Fox News, but they probably don't even show a clip of that on Fox News. You really have to dive really deep to find that stuff. You have to literally look it up. Granted, you'll find it, and enough people dislike Biden that it's easy enough to find. But I'd like to point out that the numbers say everything, right? They say everything. He's under 40%, and people are going up for re-election on the Democratic Party. They're going to have a real hard time. Because what have they actually done when they've been in power? Outside of bring us into this ridiculousness of a nightmare with inflation. You know why we're still in inflation? Why did they continue to give people money that don't need it? Why are you funding ridiculous crap? And the stuff that they had in that Build Back Better bill, they're still attempting to pass some sort of a Build Back Better. If I was Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, I wouldn't sign my name to any of this. Because you know what? They live in states where there's people outside of just the blue. And you have to think about that. I know what I'm saying might not sound nice, but I'm being realistic. Not everybody just wants handouts for everything. Some people understand that you have to work hard for what you have. You can't just things aren't just funded because you want them to be. If you want to make it in the world, you have to figure out how to make it. There's nothing else outside of that. There are no handouts. They need to do a better job with immigration, and they need to just forgive student loans. Like, why are we spending all this money on education for these jobs that don't pay enough? Like, remember I talked about the Great Resign? That should have been a wake-up call for corporations in the United States. Like, we need a do-over. Because intelligent people aren't going to be a part of this insanity. Smart people that are college educated, I'm talking about college educated people, right? People that went to a 4-year university or have a master's degree, okay? Those people are not going to just accept the shit and eat it and pretend like it's stew. No, it's shit. And we're not accepting it. So how do you have this conversation with your family members? You break it down. First, you start by talking about media. Let's look at what happened with Elon Musk. Elon Musk basically showed the entire world what Twitter was. He did. In a very great way. Twitter doesn't have an identity. It's far worse than Meta. And it allows for these democratic psychotic voices to have a place to realm, and it doesn't allow for the other side to say anything because they just blocked Trump and they've taken away his ability to say anything. I'm not on board with all of the things Trump has initiated or said on Twitter, but I think if you're going to have a value that you're of fairness and freedom and opportunity and America is the land of the great, then you can't have a social media platform that just completely cuts off the other side. It can't be an argument and there's only one side there. It can't just be the Democrats' view or the progressive views. And that's basically what Twitter is. Sure, there's some far right lunatics on there too, but you've removed Trump's ability to tweet, man. Like, you took him off of the platform. What part of that is fair and what part of that is equality? That's not equality. You want to censor out shit that doesn't match up to your ludicrous ideas of things. This is not the land of the free, because no one has ever been free here. The Native Americans, are they free? Look at their situation. The black people that were enslaved, that were brought here, look at that situation. They get a day, Black History Month. Now you want to celebrate Martin Luther King after a white man shot him dead. Malcolm X shot dead. A lot of other black leaders murdered, killed. Do we speak about it like that? Do we talk about the reality of it? It's not a pretty reality. Do we talk about the fact that lots of Native Americans were slaughtered, their land was taken from them, and it wasn't nice? Do we talk about that? Are there books about it? Sure, you can study history and you can find it, but there's no actual conversations about the origin story of the United States. The origin story of the United States is really shitty. It's horrible. So listening to the media give you half of a story that only relates to a democratic view, and listening to these morons in office and the fact that Biden keeps saying he wants the politicians to figure out. The politicians can't even figure out what fucking day of the week it is. Now, you're telling them to do something because you don't want to be held responsible for it. There you go. That's why you're telling them to do it. It doesn't have anything to do with anything except for that. You don't want to be held responsible in the public light. But every day, you don't figure out what to do with inflation, you got a problem. So you break it down to your family members and you tell them about things like Elon Musk wanting to buy Twitter based on the value of the shares and how Twitter is a bunch of shit. You break that down. Right? Then you have really deep conversations where you go back and you briefly summarize history. Just look at history. Now, Obama, I'm not sure what he did in office. I think people just got excited because he was black. I'm just going to say that. I know that might not sound nice, but I'm just going to say it. The president before him, Bush, he was elected in twice during some war with Iraq during the whole 9/11 thing. So he stayed in office 8 years. Who was before that? I think it was Clinton. Wait, let me Google that. I think it was Clinton. He got in trouble because he had an affair with whatever that lady's name, Monica or something, something. Before that, I have no idea who was the president, but it was probably a moron. Just we have a pattern in this country of allowing people to represent us that don't actually represent us. And we also have a problem in this country where we elect people into office who don't actually care about people. They care about profit, money, what's getting sent to an offshore account so they can go have fun and go on unlimited vacations and not drive cars instead of be driven around. I'm sorry. When we look at some of these politicians like AOC, she's a bodyguard. What do you need a bodyguard for? What are you afraid of? Why are you acting like your life is so much better than anyone else's life? Are you kidding me? That whole big deal they made about January 6th. January 6th, some people did some stuff they weren't supposed to do, and I'm not on board with the shit they did. I think that they maybe went a little too far. I'm not on board with, Trump trying to misuse his power because it didn't work and he couldn't do it. So it didn't happen. But if we're going to continue to talk about something where people got minor, things happen to them almost 2 years later, do you know how psychotic that sounds? Bring up these points and break them down, okay? Bring them up. We're living in a very precarious time right now. People are being shot on subways. People are being shot in churches. People are being murdered. People are being killed because it's psychotic people here. And they believe that they're right about everything. And the government is chaos. We are living in Gotham City. But all the bad guys have been let out of jail, and the politicians were the ones that were in there. And they've been let loose. Nancy Pelosi isn't your friend. Democrats aren't your friend. Republicans aren't your friend. None of them are our friends. They all suck. So if you're going to explain this to people so they actually understand this process of shitty politicians, you're going to have to say some things they might not like. Because in order to get everybody on the same side of awareness, we can't keep electing in punk Democrats, okay? Nancy Pelosi needs to be removed from office. I'm sorry. Chuck Schumer, he's not doing shit. Where's my student loan forgiveness, dude? Where's my student loan forgiveness? If I get a disability where you give me one, that's the only way I'm going to get it? Are you kidding me? Next, pass. Why does everything have to be attached to something else? These people don't actually give a flying fuck about anybody but themselves. Do you know how many houses Biden has? Do you know how many houses Nancy Pelosi has? Do you know how much money these people have in offshore accounts? They're not worried about shit. They don't care. Politicians run the media, and the media is run by the elite. Why do you think they buy these newspapers and they own all the news stations? So everything you're listening to has been filtered to match up with their hypocrisy. Welcome to the media. Reasons why no media is allowed here, because it's a bunch of shit and they're not saying anything. The interest rates aren't going down where I live, they're going up. There's no student loan forgiveness. There's a problem with things being delivered correctly in the United States. That's not getting better. I wouldn't be surprised if the truckers are actually going to boycott and not do things like trucking. Once that happens, we're fucked. But, if you want to listen to the lies of Clinton News, CNN, Clinton News Network, go ahead, because they're not going to tell you anything that's actually happening. All they do is lie. And if you want to listen to the rest of the schmucky media companies owned by these lackey elite losers, go ahead. Go for it. I'm hoping Apple sticks to their guns and they protect their users and they don't allow Meta or anyone to stop them from doing what they're supposed to do, because Apple has a responsibility and they can't fall and be victim to these social media gurus trying to ruin everything. Anyways, if you're going to have that conversation, that's how you start it, and that's how you get your family members involved, because people got to wake up and smell the coffee. The coffee is, we don't matter in a place where there's more of us than them. That's a problem. Moving on to the next part of our conversation. Feeling of discontent. The feeling of discontent can match up with what I just said. You don't feel like you matter. You feel off. You feel like the world is changing. Kids don't go outside anymore. All they do is play with iPads, and their parents are buying them like iPhone 13s and stuff, like the most ridiculous stuff. What are we talking about, man? Like, really? Are you serious? It's so bizarre. Like, these people can't, some people don't know how to have conversations with other people. We're living in a place where no one wants to be held accountable. If you try to talk about certain conversations, people want to cut you off. Some people think they know everything versus someone else. And it just never ends. It's just a clusterfuck of a fuck. I don't know about you, but I sometimes can't deal with just the overbearing annoyance of people at times. But I mean, that's life. Like, you're going to have to deal with people, especially in a career or a job, whether you work in customer service, whether you work in claims, whether you work in any field, you're going to have to deal with customers. If you're a teacher, the customers are the kids. If you're working in the back office or something, then you're talking on the phone. If you're working face forward, then you're dealing with the customers and are coming into an establishment or a business. You're going to have to deal with people. But the feeling of the discontent is where you just feel like something's not working. And it's easy to feel like that, especially with social media being so overwhelming and just so annoying. And especially with people losing the ability to have conversations. Which is why I think it's so important that I break out of the spell of texting instead of talking. And I break out of the spell of visiting and spending time with my family instead of just not doing that. So I'm going to work on myself so I don't feel the feeling of discontent, because that feeling sucks. Where you feel like you don't fit in, you're questioning everything, you don't have any energy, and you can't get anything done. That's not living. Again, that's falling back in line to the idea of you're watching your life, you're not living your life. If you're watching your life, you're missing out on everything that's important. Discontent isn't a good thing. Figure out a way of getting rid of that. That's what I'm saying. Next part of our conversation. The big disconnection. There is a disconnection. Social media is the biggest part of this disconnection. It's not real, okay? I know you're on a dating website and you think this dude is so cute and you can't wait to meet him, but what if he cancels the date and you don't get to meet him? Well, what if you do meet him and he ends up being a psychopath that's going to put you in the back of his van and chop off your body parts and sell them to people that want to eat you because they're cannibals? There's a disconnection. What happened to just talking to each other? There's also a disconnection because when these politicians or people that have a certain amount of money try to have a conversation, like a normal conversation, they're not aware of the fact that they're filthy rich and they're talking to people that are not. The problem with the Constitution in the United States of America is there's a lot of iffy words in there, and they're trying to change the Constitution so they can do more stupid shit that makes no sense. And it's just, it feels like it's never ending. I don't know about you, but the idea can't be that we just give, and no one's held responsible. If people don't understand how to work for themselves and build their own lives, they're never going to do anything. We're just going to have a country full of lazy-ass people that don't want to do anything. And that's not succeeding. That's not doing anything. You have to go to work. You have to learn responsibility. You can't just pop kids out and not be held accountable and think you're going to live off of the state and get a handout. Like, If I can't get anything and I work, what makes you think you don't have to go to a job? You see what I'm confused about? What are we talking about? I don't think people should be having children until they can afford them and provide their child with a life where they're not worried or concerned with anything. There's way too many people making decisions that don't affect their kids in a good way, and it's selfish. It is selfish. Honestly, people need to do things better, but no one wants to hold them responsible. There's a problem with the politicians and the people. There's a problem with the corporations and the workers. And there's a problem with sports players and the announcers. There's a real disconnection here on a lot of different levels. And if we're really going to talk about the disconnection, it's going to take way longer than 30 to 45 minutes of this podcast. But there's a big disconnection in this place we live in this world we live on, called Earth. And I don't know if it's going to get better. I can hope it gets better, but I can't tell you it is. If people aren't taking the time to look at things in a certain way, they're not going to see what I'm talking about. Having a mentality that you don't want to hold anybody responsible and you just think you want to give. The United States can't be Canada. There's too many people here. It's not going to work. I know we want to hype up all these other countries that are doing all these things for their citizens, but the United States has too many people here to be able to do that and to fund that. And they already tax the people, the working class, way too much already for these free dumbass ideas that they end up doing. Remember the idea that they're going to build more pre-K options for people, but there's already pre-K options that exist? Remember all these ridiculous ass ideas they want to implement? Where do you think the money's coming from? I'll tell you where the money's coming from. My check at my job. Where else? Skip's check. Everyone else is paying for these dumbass ideas because they tax us to the moon for ridiculous shit. We need to have these conversations. Things got to change. The disconnection from reality to like a daydream is serious. Wake up, man. Wake the fuck up. Smell the damn roses. Smell the coffee too. There's a disconnection. Like, if the Elon Musk Twitter thing isn't making you think like, what's up with Twitter? Like, it's one side that wants a voice and they want to mute out anything else. One side. They want to mute out everything else. You see what I'm saying? There's a problem. The Democrats need to be stopped, held responsible, and muted too. Like, how about we just mute all these politicians? How about we elect someone else new to run for president? I know everybody wants to pretend like they hate Trump, but at least he came in and he won based off his own voice. It didn't have anything to do with what he did 40 years earlier. And Biden was in office for many years, and he's the president, and he hasn't done shit. Next, I don't want to hear about you giving asylum to people that I don't know if they deserve asylum. How are we making those decisions? What are we doing? What are you doing for the people of the country that already live here while you're helping out other people that aren't from here? You see the confusion there? There's a disconnection here. A big disconnection. There's people that are homeless, do not have homes, and you'll give away their security blanket to someone that's from another country for asylum. That's not how this is supposed to work here. And the United States of America has a lot of work to do. So let's hold them accountable. Next part of our conversation, the I know everything crew. Those are the people that are like, yeah, I know, I don't care. Or you say something to them, or they'll be like, oh no, you know you could do that by yourself. Like, I tried to say to someone in a brief conversation that I liked listening to Jim Cramer, and I was a part of his what the hell is it called? I was a part of his investing club. And I find Jim Cramer very interesting, and I appreciate all he does. Because Jim Cramer is an amazing man, and he's very knowledgeable. He has many years of experience, especially in the stock market, in the field of stocks and bonds and everything that goes into it. And he's trustworthy. He's like one of the only voices I actually want to listen to when it comes to Wall Street. And he's fun. So I tried to have a conversation with someone just outside of what normal conversations are. And they belligerently cut me off and said I could look up the information by myself. If it was that easy to look up information like that, everybody would be doing it. The reason why you want to be a part of an investing club and you want to be a part of some of these clubs is so you get special insight into it. That's why. And you want to have an amazing leader leading the realm. I'm not saying I can't look things up by myself, but that was the reaction. And that's not the first time I've had a reaction like that. Typically when I try to have conversations, people typically do the weird shit where they're the I know everything crew and they're like, I know. Well, if you knew, why am I telling you this? Like, hello? Exactly. Those people probably need to talk to themselves, and you probably could just keep it moving. Because the I know everything crew doesn't know everything. They just think they do. That's the difference. They're annoying, and people that think they know everything need somebody to talk to them so they can shut the hell up. Because you can't possibly know everything. You're not special. So shut up. Why can't you do it your way? Why can't you do it your way? You don't have to have an explanation for everything. You don't have to make people happy. You don't have to do what people like. You don't have to be that suck-up person that's kissing someone's ass and licking the floor that they're walking on so they'll pay you 5 seconds of attention. You don't have to be that person. Live your life, man. Don't apologize for shit. Be you. And you'll figure it out. It might not happen in a day, but you'll figure it out. Why not be yourself? Why do you have to keep pretending like you're something else? Don't you hate that when you're in a situation and you feel like you're not you? Then get out of the situation. If it's a job, find another one. If it's a relationship, probably time to find a new one. If it's anything. If you're at school and you're majoring in something and then you start to realize, like, what am I majoring in? Maybe it's time to switch your major. Whatever it is, whatever the situation, you can change your mind and you can do anything you want. Why not do it your way? Why look for people's permission to do what you want? You're an adult, or maybe you're not an adult and you still live with your parents, but at some point you will be an adult and you can do things your way and you don't have to tell people why you're doing it. It's your life. They'll be okay. An explanation is not always required. Just going to say it. Next part of our conversation, let's get into Star Wars Talk, we watch together. And this Wednesday edition of Star Wars Talk, let's talk about time jumping in Marvel. That Disney show called, I forgot the name of it again, for the love of God, Moon Knight. Kind of good. You know, we rewatched the first episode again and we've been catching up on what they have available, and it's kind of fun. I like anything that's involving superheroes or supervillains, which is probably why I like DC more than the other one. But it's pretty good. Definitely something you need to start watching, especially if you like Marvel and especially if you like what Marvel represents. You should definitely get into it. The first couple of episodes are really good. You're really going to need to focus on the first episode to understand what's happening. There's a lot of time jumping. It's comparable to Inception, and you're really, really, really going to have to pay attention to understand the gist of what's occurring. The remains of Amazon watching. They have movies and they have a couple of shows, and they had this movie that I thought was going to be better than it was. Something Old Dogs, whatever. It was kind of predictable, but it was okay. I mean, they're trying, but I feel like they could be doing a lot better. And I love Amazon. I love what Amazon represents. I just want them to do better. Find better actors. Get better storylines. Get better writers. You can do it. You have this amazing platform. Why aren't you using that platform to your benefit? Start producing things that are coming out on a weekly basis instead of giving the whole show away at once. Do things that are coming out weekly. And I'm not talking about some of the stuff you've already come out with. You need to start creating something you haven't done yet. Wheel of Time was great, but we're not going to see that again to what, October, November? No, you need to be creating things that are coming out weekly all year long, and it can't just be in certain time frames or certain seasons. It has to be all year long. If you're going to compete with Netflix, that's only making things, and you're going to compete with HBO, which is the same thing, you have to be on that level or you're going to get left in the dust. I'm just going to say it. And I like Amazon, so I'm not going to completely just say don't look at them. But we need to be holding them accountable and questioning some of the shit they're doing. Like, what am I watching? What are we watching on Amazon? Question. Can Westworld start already? I mean, I think Westworld's coming on soon. I guess we just got to lay and wait for it. Diving into Murder, She Wrote. I do, and I've talked about Murder, She Wrote a lot. I do think that Murder, She Wrote is the staple of murder and mystery. Not just for the Hallmark Channel where it resides and it plays on loop over and over and over again because they have the rights to it, which is kind of brilliant and smart, but I think in everything. I think that Murder, She Wrote relates to Agatha Christie and it relates to mystery. And mysteries are entertaining and intriguing and they entice people and they make them want more. And when you have a market for that, then you constantly have something where people are going to watch it. Now, granted, some of the episodes take place primarily in Maine and New York, but I'd like to think that the idea of the show is that it's taking place in New England and it keeps that flair. Sometimes Jessica goes on visits to other places and she's constantly visiting family members or she's dealing with her books and everything's kind of connected to each other, so that's the niceness of the show. I do think that this show set up a lot of other things that followed after it. Angela Lansbury is an amazing actress, and she is mystery. And the reason why that show did so well, and the reason why they probably play it on replay, and the reason why it's available on Hulu, and it was available at Netflix at one point, it's because you're able to go into a different place, feel like you've lived there your entire life, and try to solve it. And there's really nothing comparable to that, even now. So Murder, She Wrote, still top notch, still amazing. Can't complain about it. Character development leads to more seasons or less seasons. I think good character development leads to more seasons. I think when you take time to build up the character and show who they are and show if they're the main character of a show or if they don't matter in the show and the show's about somebody else, I do think that leads to a better overall show. Not just with one character, but whatever the people are, like giving them a backstory, giving you a better understanding of how we got to this part of it. I think that's essential. For sure. Moving into Veekstar. Where you recognize your star. What K-Cups are better? I don't know. I like to get the Target K-Cups, the Market Pantry, only because I believe that the flavors are more in depth, but my mom just gets the basic flavor and she buys like a 180 pack. It's probably more economical than what I do because I think the other ones are like $8 or something a box. But if you buy it when it's like buy one get one free or whatever, then you can really like enjoy the deal. But I do like the Market Pantry ones better because I feel like the flavor, you got more variety of flavors. I like flavors in the K-Cups. I think that's important. Eggs any time of the day. Literally, you can have eggs for lunch, brunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever you want. You could have eggs anytime. You could put eggs in your salad. You can put eggs in anything. You can make a pie, a cake. You can literally use eggs in anything. You could just do scrambled eggs. There's nothing you can't use eggs with. Is coffee better to drink early in the day? I feel like you should start your day off with a cup of coffee. I don't think you should be drinking like a cup of coffee at like 4 or something, because you're going to be hyper, and I don't know if you're going to be able to like go to sleep. Granted, if you're 4 and you're going to sleep at midnight, it might wear off by that time, but you got to be very careful that you don't drink coffee after a certain time, or it's not going to be good for you. Are we ready to try grapefruit salad? I mean, I'll try it. I'm willing to try anything, and I do like salads, and I think grapefruit is not that bad. What salad dressing is going to go with it? I don't know, so we're going to have to figure that out. Soup in the summer. Clam chowder. Delicious. You could probably make like a pesto soup with like shrimp. I'm sure you could utilize any like seafood and make a soup out of it. And I do think that it would be very efficient in the summer because it's quick to make and it can be very flavorful. So why not have soup in the sour? The best grilled cheeses are made with mozzarella, Munster, and delicious cheese. And it's got to be made with a certain kind of bread. It's got to be made with like the French toast bread, and it's got to be like grilled perfectly. Like you got to make sure like it doesn't spend too much time in the grill, but also you got to make sure that it spends the correct amount of time so the cheese melts correctly and it's like scrumptious, delicious. Anyways, it's the end of the podcast on this Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in as always to Born to Be a Star, and I will see you tomorrow on Thursday. Bye.